Here's a fishing question for you. What's the easiest fish to catch in freshwater and the best time to do it? It's right now, and it's white bass fishing. It's going on because of the annual spring spawning run. We're going to talk a lot about it on this week's show. Teach you how you can take your kids and family on a great fishing trip this weekend and have a bunch of fish for a fish fry when it's all over. Come on along. Fox Sports Outdoors is on the air right now.
You're watching the only program with weekly fishing reports and real-time outdoor news from the Southwest region. This is Fox Sports Outdoors.
Every year, right about this time, something magical happens at reservoirs all across the southwest and southeastern parts of our country. Hundreds of thousands of white bass make their annual trek up creeks and major river systems on their spawning run, and when they do, they're very aggressive and they get really easy to catch. On today's show, we're going to go to one of my favorite white bass fisheries. Right here behind me is the Sabine River, as the locals call it. It's actually the far, far upper reaches of Toledo Bend Reservoir, one of the most famous bass fisheries in the country, but most people don't know about the great white bass fishery that is the Sabine River in the spring feeding Toledo Bend. We're going to take that Pro Team 195. It's my brand new tracker boat, one of its maiden voyages out today. Do a little white bass fishing and teach you how you can catch some this coming weekend at a river, creek, or feeder system near you. And while we're doing that, we're taking you around your local region for your fishing reports from our expert team of insider reporters on lakes, rivers, and bays near you. Hey, let's catch some white bass today. We're going to show you how it's done. Right now, we get you back to the FSN studios to get it all started with your weekend planner.
Hello everyone, the Salooner tables are indicating fair game fish activity for your first weekend of spring fishing. Peak morning hours will begin at 7:31 on Saturday and 8:30 on Sunday, with the best nighttime action taking place after sunset. The sun will rise at 7:16 and set at 7:47. And evenings will feature a first quarter moon that is 50% visible. We're coming right back with fishing reports from around the area. Plus, I'll return with crappie expert Wally Marshall to answer this week's Ask the Pro question. Stay with us.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Tracker Boats. It's more than a boat, it's a tracker. Mercury Outboards, go boldly. LOWRANCE and the new Hook 2, the world's easiest fish finder. And Louisiana Travel. Plan your fishing trip at louisianatravel.com.
1, 2, 3, up. Look at that fat dude. All right. Swam up and ate it. Feels like a decent one. Oh yeah, there's a good one. That's a good one right there. Well, let's just do this. 1, 2, 3, up. Look at that fat dude. All right, that is a female. Look at the little short length on that fish, but how fat and wide that fish is, full of roe right there. That's the females that come swimming up in the river, headed right up that little creek to go spawn. Wow, that's a lot of fun on light tackle. All right, back that fish goes, and let me work my way out of this hole. And let's get you set up on how all this works. We had a lot of rain and cold weather last few days, and it's finally broken off and it's clearing up just a little bit. So you need several factors in order to make this work. Number one is you need warming temperatures, preferably in the mid to upper 50s. Second thing you need is current. These fish, God just wired them up instinctively to be, there's another one, to come to the current. And there's just something that just draws these fish, pulls them out of the main reservoirs and up into the current. So any creek, any ditch, and particularly main river systems is where you're going to find these fish. That one's not nearly as big. In fact, that's a male. So the process is The males come first, and there will be hundreds of thousands of them that'll swim up. It's longer, skinnier, smaller fish. You saw that earlier one was a female, and they're going to be pulled like a magnet toward this current. Males go up first, and then they wait. They don't make nests. They don't make beds like a largemouth or a smallmouth or a spotted bass does. They don't wallow out a spot on the bottom. They just move up in the current. The females will spray those eggs into the current, and then the males will come and fertilize behind them, and those eggs just free float in the current, and they'll kind of get caught in the little crags of the rocks and that kind of thing, and they'll hatch. And that's kind of the process for white bass. It starts typically in February, depending on where you live, could be early February, maybe late January even, and typically runs all the way through April and further up north even into May. So that's kind of your process for what attracts these fish, the spawning cycle, and it's an annual deal, folks. Every year when this starts, it is like clockwork. You can set your watch by it. In fact, here on the Sabine River, I was talking to some guys that come down every year from Kansas City, and they just they set their watch by this. Every year they can come and just catch them and catch them and catch them. It's a lot of fun. We're going to talk a lot more about it. We're all set up. Stay with us, though. Right now we're going to catch some fishing and lake reports through some other parts of the region.
Hi folks, and welcome to this week's Lone Star Lakes, brought to you once again by Fiberworks Marine Collision. Whether you have a small scratch or catastrophic damage, you'll find Fiberworks' attention to detail and personal attention will get you back on the water in no time. Now this week we've come to OHIV, which is very low, as most of our western lakes are. To catch fish here, you're going to need to do a couple of things. First of all, fish main lake points. You'll fish those with your moving baits like your traps, your shallow crankbaits, and your spinner baits. You can also use your jerk baits, both hard plastic and soft plastic, on these Ivy bass. You'll also want to go up into the timber and use your jig and pig or your Texas rig with either a lizard or a creature. Where you find the fish will depend on how our weather goes over the next few weeks, but they are moving shallow, so I would stay in that 6 to 12 foot range. That's this week's Lone Star Lakes, brought to you once again by Fiberworks Marine Collision. When good enough just isn't good enough. Now let's check in with Mr. Bill Olson. He's on the coast.
Hi folks, Texas Outdoors Journal brings you this week's report, and it has once again been named the #1 major outdoor magazine in Texas. You can count on timely, accurate hunting and fishing tips every month, 12 times a year, from TOJ's top outdoor professionals. Pick up a copy of Texas Outdoors Journal on newsstands or subscribe and save at texasoutdoorsjournal.com or call 713-957-3997. Well, wind and or fresh water on the upper coast. Just wind on the middle and lower coast. It's springtime on the Texas coast. It's time for you to make a plan to deal with what Mother Nature throws at us. So grab a chart, watch the forecast, look at the tide and lunar tables to create a plan, as well as several options. On the lower and middle coast, a good topwater bite has emerged. With windy conditions, go with floaters that make a little more noise. Shallow back bays, lakes, and marshes are good places to find redfish, and downsize your lure to match the hatch. It's just that time of year. Shallow marsh and bayous around West Galveston and Sabine are options to beat the wind and fresh water. This weekend, both Saturday and Sunday have a single tide schedule of 1 high and 1 low tide each day. I'm Bill Olson, and I'll see you on the coast.
We're taking a quick break, but first, here are a few bonus pictures from our Big Catch of the Week contest. These photos were not selected as winners, but we still wanted you to see some of the fantastic catches from around the region. We'll reveal this week's winner toward the end of today's program. Back in a bit.
There's a big old fat female for you. All right. There we go. right there at the mouth of that little ditch. Coming up. Come up, buddy. That one. It's another female. Not a huge female, but a female nonetheless. All right. Fat belly. Lots of fun to catch. Little swim bait. That's a rally grub. It's a Jean LaRue rally grub. Let me show you something here real quick. Look for ditches, creeks, and any kind of water running into the main river system. You can see right in front of me here, we got one little feeder creek, and it's pouring right into the main river. So these fish are going to swim out of that reservoir, up the main river, and then they'll actually make a turn and go up any little side creek that they can find. The other cool thing is if you've got a muddy river like we've got right now, you can see where the mud and the little bit clear water are mixing. So they'll migrate toward that little bit clear water. Now white bass don't mind the mud. They'll spawn in the muddy water, and you can catch them in the muddy water. We'll show you right down this line here. They'll show you a close-up of where this clearer water and the muddy water are mixing. And that's always a great spot. If you're running up a river and you see a little creek or ditch or something like that, always stop and fish it. Fish the mouth of it and then go up in it as far as you can go. And those fish will go all the way to the very back and spawn in the shallowest water that they can find. Creeks, ditches, any kind of side drains are always key.
Hey friends, Captain Kevin Broussard here with your Fox Sports Outdoor Report. We're going to talk and we're talking saltwater this week. I tell you what, had a great day out here on Calcasieu. Had the Leskers, I had Roy right here with me. Went on his first fishing trip in the saltwater on the boat. Tell you what, did you have fun today?
Yes.
We caught a lot of big redfish. Key today, it was pretty windy, the water was off color, but we went down the Gulf jetties. We threw scented plastics, we tipped it with shrimp sometimes. The fish were in 12 to 18 feet of water, kind of on the drop-offs. We caught a lot of redfish. I think we ended up coming in 13 or 14, threw back several big ones. We caught some drum, caught a few sheephead. Tell you what, we're still dealing with a little dirty fresh water here on Calcasieu, but in the next couple weeks, we ought to get some pretty salt water coming in. Shrimp ought to start moving in. I tell you what, it won't be long, those trout are gonna be firing off. Look for those under the birds, throw soft plastics rigged on light jig heads, sometimes even under a cork. Tell you what, redfish right now, doing best along the channel into Gulf jetties, scented plastics, or tipping it with shrimp or dead shrimp. I tell you what, for Cajun Phil, it's Captain Kevin Broussard saying, happy fishing, may God bless.
I've got my Motor Guide XI3 wireless remote control trolling motor up here, and I've just got it locked down where I can just make repeated casts into the same spot. There's one's got it. Don't you get in my trolling motor, don't you get in my trolling motor. What have I got? Ooh, that's a good one. There we go. Come here, buddy. There's a big old fat female for you. All right. There's what a female looks like. Obviously wider, thicker, heavier fish. A lot of fish in this particular river system will go 2 1/4 to as much as 3 pounds. I caught one right at 3 pounds the last time I was here. Let me explain something to you about a white bass. You know, when a largemouth or a smallmouth or a spotted bass spawns, they won't eat. They go on a non-feeding frenzy for a couple of weeks, and it's hard to make a largemouth, smallmouth, or spotted bass bite. White bass, they feed aggressively the entire time they're spawning, during the entire spawning cycle. Pre-spawn, when they're first moving up out of the reservoir, they're feeding. They're feeding while they're spawning. They feed on the way back to the reservoir. So it's so cool to bring a kid or someone who's older who can't do a lot of tricky casting or a lot of difficult techniques. If you can cast and reel it back in, you can catch a white bass this time of the year while they're running up these creeks and rivers to spawn. I'll explain some of the tackle you need a little bit later on in the show.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Lew's. Feel the difference. Jean LaRue and Bobby Garland. We know bass and crappie from heads to tails. And by Glacier Glove. Stay outdoors longer with our gloves, hats, and shades.
There's another one in that muddy water right there. Got it. There we go. There's another one in that muddy water right there. All right. Well, we got another one. Welcome back, everybody. We're still on the Sabine River in Texas, showing you how you can catch some of these white bass where you live. Let's go to a couple of more principles here. We're not keeping them today, but we could. That would make a really nice fillet right there, a couple of them. Notice right here, this is really muddy water in here. I mentioned earlier that these fish don't mind muddy water. They'll migrate up that current and up that mud, and what they will do is find these little tributaries. They'll find little creeks, ditches. Another cool thing about this is it really doesn't matter how many folks you've got around. I fished this spot before when there's been 7 or 8 boats fishing around the mouth of this one little ditch. People tend to congregate around those, and it really doesn't matter. The fish keep moving up in waves. The noise doesn't spook them. The outboard engines don't spook them. People laughing and hollering don't spook them. It's just a lot of fun, and a lot of times it's a big party when these white bass are doing this.
I'm at the Bassmaster Classic, so it's a few days before you're actually seeing this report. But I see Tommy Biffle here, and I want to get from him current conditions on Lake Tenkiller, which should be ideal for fishing in Oklahoma right now.
Hey, you know, this week we've had a lot of warm weather. They're dropping Tenkiller. Tenkiller's falling every day. And by this next weekend, the fish should move up in those pockets and those shallow coves. And you know, my choice would be a biffle bug and a hardhead, 7/16. Sooner run would be the color. And if the water's dirty, then you want to go to maybe black neon or something. Just throw it around the back of the pockets and around the sides. Should be able to catch a lot of fish by next weekend. The way you want to rig it is bring it all the way through and let the point lay on the back of the bug right there in that little old ditch. That's what it's for. And that way when they latch a hold of it, they got it. Retrieve speed, I like a 7-to-3 gear ratio reel. Just moving it as fast as I can move it, but still got to stay in contact with the bottom.
There's another one. Man, they are stacked in here now. Come up here. All males. Every one of these a male, but man, they're a lot of fun to catch, one right after the next. All right, there you go. You can catch them on all kinds of tackle, by the way. Bait cast tackle, spinning tackle. You can catch them on a push button rod and reel like you would get for your kids. Cast real easy, and they'll bite anything that looks like a live bait. So a lipless rattling crankbait, a billed crankbait. You can catch them on a small spoon. You can catch them on a swim grub. You can catch them on a tail spinner. There are just lots and lots of ways to do this. And again, just anything that looks like a swimming bait fish will work for this application of fishing. Once you get into them, though, almost anything that moves, they'll bite. The chrome colors, whites, and chartreuses are always your best colors.
You can always watch our latest episode on the front page of our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com. Catch up on past episodes by clicking the archive button and learn about fishing techniques and new gear at our how-to page. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter for new fishing videos every day. Simply search for Fox Sports Outdoors and click the like button on Facebook and follow button on Twitter. And watch a new episode every week on any device by downloading the free WAYPOINT TV app on your phone, tablet, computer, or smart TV. Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Motor Guide's new wireless and easy-to-use XI3. XI batteries, powering the world forward. WAYPOINT Marine, the Gulf Coast's leading saltwater boating specialist. And Strike King, designed by the pros, fished by you.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's get right to your Ask the Pro question for this week. Sam wants to know, when is it best to long line for crappie and when is it best to cast? For an answer, we asked the one and only Mr. Crappie, Wally Marshall.
I'll tell you what, long line trolling is probably the best technique you can use post-spawn. That's because you're using multiple rods, you're covering a lot of area, and most of the crappie will suspend 3 foot to 4 foot deep in 20 foot of water. So if you're casting, your lure is going down below the fish. When you're looking for fish on your depth finder and can't see them, they've moved up into the water column. So I'm going to give you the best tip. Post-spawn, tight line troll. Spawn, either vertical jigging with one rod, vertical, or tight line trolling. But then after the spawn, they're all over the banks. then you can start casting. But remember, I like a bobber with the jig.
Thank you, Wally. If you want some help from one of the pros, go to foxsportsoutdoors.com and follow the Ask the Pro link to submit a question. Now it's time to find out who wins this week's Big Catch of the Week.
Hey, it's time right now for someone to get their big fish photo on camera and on television in the Big Catch of the Week contest. Here's this week's winner. He's Joseph Sanderson of Austin, Texas, showing off a 12-pound, 8-ounce largemouth bass he caught at Broken Bow Lake in southeastern Oklahoma. If you'd like to have your big fish shown on television with your picture, go to our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com, click in the Big Catch of the Week area on the right side of the front page, follow the instructions to send us your photo, and you could be famous. Next up, it's the right gear if you'd like to go catch white bass of your very own. And as I mentioned, lots of gear will work. Bait cast tackle, spinning tackle, spin cast tackle. I was using the brand new Lew's Mock Crush Speed Stick rod and reel factory matched combo. You can tell it by the orange wind grips. Got a beautiful smooth spinning reel, microwave guide system, IM8 graphite rod. It is a fantastic factory matched combo. Had it spooled up with 10-pound fluorocarbon line. And as far as the bait is concerned, I had a 1/8 ounce lead head jig with a chartreuse pearl colored Jean LaRue Rally grub. And as I mentioned, there are many other kinds of baits that will work as well. Anything that mimics a minnow or a shad will catch these white bass. The other day at church, I heard my preacher say something, and I went home and tried to look up who originally said it and couldn't find out, because lots of folks have. The saying goes something like this: you teach what you know, but you reproduce what you are. For those of us who are parents, we can tell our kids what we want them to hear over and over again with our mouth. But the sobering truth is, they will look straight inside and they know the truth, and they will most likely grow up to be something of what we are. So isn't it about time we parents take a good hard look in the mirror at ourselves and see if our actions mimic the message? Remember, we are not fooling our kids. I hope you learned something this week about going out and finding those white bass in a river or creek system near you, and I hope you catch a bunch this weekend. If you would like to book a guide trip specifically to the Sabine River here on the Texas-Louisiana border, catch some of these white bass, you can do that with Tom or Jane Gallenbach, the contact information you see on your screen. We will see you next week. Until then, I'm Barry Stokes. Be safe, have fun. Bye-bye, y'all.